So, considering all that I've been going through over the last few pieces here, where are we on the question of video games? There is one very significant issue that sets video games apart from the rest of what I've been talking about. I'll get into that in a moment. But the fact is that much of what is needed for a video game should already be in our toolkit. Again, that's the point of a fictional universe. You make a lot of parts, and those parts together become resources for making more parts. Story is not the issue here. We already got that down pat. We got a design for a world with the important locations detailed fairly well. But more than that, we already have that world given form because we needed that. First for the comics and then for the video. But what would then set video games so much apart from the rest? And the answer to that is the engine. Now, for those out there who are not a part of the whole game development environment, you may not know what I mean by an engine. No, we're not talking about some kind of gas-guzzling mechanical monster that just chucks away in the corner, letting you play your games. No. The engine is a bunch of code, computer code, that allows someone playing the game to actually interact with it and to get back some kind of result from that. To put it in language that more people will probably understand, it lets you control things on the screen and it lets you see what then happens. We may have all the characters and places created very nicely, with nice details for the movies and comics, but they still won't move on their own. They still won't act, they still won't be a living, breathing environment, a world for games to take place in. So how do we handle that without going into all the nitty-gritty details of computer code? The answer is honestly, it depends. Computer games are not just computer games. There are many different kinds, but they all come down to a simple requirement. Control something on the screen. Push buttons, move your mouse, and something on the screen reacts. So rather than thinking in great graphical designs and all kinds of gaming options, we'll keep it focused on this. Again, keep it simple, stupid. We need something moving on the screen when we press a button. And shockingly, that's not very difficult to do. We'll keep the game side of this fictional universe as simple as possible. Likely even something that you play in a regular internet browser. It's not as bizarre as it might sound. It's being done every day. Some versions are simpler than others. We're going for the simplest possible. Again, I'm not going to bore you with code. But moving something on the screen, it's very commonplace. You do it whenever you use the web. You move cursors on the screen. Depending on the website, you may even move things around that you see on the website. That's not what I'm going to go into. The design question that lurks around the corner is actually based very much on what we already have. We have a world and we have a story set in it. Which do we base the first game on? Do we make it the world? Leave the player to run around on their own as they see fit, exploring everything, encountering things, discovering things? Or do we base it on the story? Do we set it in the same story that we have for the comics, for the novels, for the movies? A story about new students having to get from A to B. Ironically, the easiest solution here is the one that was the more difficult one at first. It's easy to imagine a world. It's a bit harder to write the stories in it. But here, yeah, it's easier to set down a story and let the characters in the game run through it. This was the recipe for a lot of early games based on movies or books. Have the events from those stories be the main point in the game, and let the player control someone that has to get through the same trials and tribulations as the characters in those stories. So we set up as much of the world as we need, and then we have the characters that the players control get the same challenge that the main characters in a story got. Get to the building to get your paperwork in order. From there on, they run through the ditches, through the hail of bombardments from older students, across obstacles, avoiding the fighting giants, going through the destroyed building, having to find their injured staff member to sign the paperwork and then get it back to where it belongs. It might seem kind of foolish to just copy the story, but the story has plenty of challenges that could translate well into a game. It's a lot of moving around, it's a lot of avoiding things, it's a lot of discovering things. That's perfect for a simple video game. Again, it leans very much into the games from back in the 90s, and that's a perfect place for this to start. So what about all the things that were made for the comic and for the movies? Assets, as they call them, both in the movie making industry and in the game development industry. Assets, the characters, the places, all the artistic content used already. What about that? Well, some of it can be used directly, simplified to fit into the simple structure, simple architecture of the game in question. Some of it, however, is going to be too detailed, too advanced for a game that is this simple. But there's nothing wrong with that. This is just the start of a fictional universe. Later, more complex things will follow. Assets will grow, both number and quality, and then, one day, they will fit into the games that are made. They will fit into that future game engine.